Okay, these series of videos we're going to look at now are going to show us a very foundational understanding of how we're actually going to carry out an audit and document an audit of a site. So I'm going to walk you through a lot of the basic steps. This process, of course, is going to change a lot. There's many, many more steps that we can add to this, but these are the absolute foundations that we should be looking at for any new site that we take on or any time an audit needs to be done for a site. So we're going to go through everything step by step, and of course if there are any questions, write these questions down and we will go through them in detail. So for the purposes of this example, we are going to be looking at a website called Cutter and Squidge. They're a competitor to Lola's Cupcakes, and it's a medium to large size site, so we should be able to find a good amount of information on them. We're also going to be looking at one of the clients I currently work with, which is Gruto, and we'll have a look at some unique examples that we can see in both of them. So the first step on the audit is we want to check the CMS, which is the content management system. WordPress is a content management system, so is Shopify, so is Magento. These are essentially what is the platform that the website is built on. Very important for us to be aware of what platform the website is built on, because Shopify has its own SEO errors that we have to deal with, and WordPress also has its own unique SEO errors that we have to deal with. So if we know what platform it's on, it can help us diagnose those errors quicker. So the first step is to find the CMS of the website. So we go to CMS detect, and let's open this in a new tab. And of course, it will tell us what we need to know. So we copy and paste this in over here, and we go detect CMS. And it tells us it's built on Shopify. So we would just go into the document over here, and we would type in Shopify. If we wanted to have a look at something that was built on WordPress, for example, my website, we could copy this and paste this over here, and it should tell us that it's built on WordPress. Exactly, that's built on WordPress. So whatever it is that whatever the website is built on, we would take that information and put it in over here. Next, we want to have a look at the hosting provider of the website. This can be done for several reasons. Sometimes we can't do 301 redirects from the site itself. We have to do it through the host. Sometimes the site may be hacked. We need to look at the host. It's always just important for us to know where the site is hosted. So we can go to hostingchecker.com. And once again, we should put in our URL. So let's just test SeanDexter.ai. And when we go find host, it tells us it's hosted on InMotion, as we know. For Cutter and Squidge, when we put Cutter and Squidge into the tool, it tells us that it's actually being hosted on Cloudflare. So wherever it is being hosted, we'll enter this information over here. Next, we need to check if the website has a Google Search Console account. Now, you won't be able to check this unless you have admin access. So in the future, this is something I'm going to grant for you, so you have access to the Google Analytics and to their Google Search Console. If you're not familiar with what Google Search Console is, I recommend you look at a few tutorials. It is essentially similar to Google Analytics, but it's a platform built by Google which helps us look at a few SEO issues, and also gives us a bit of information on the traffic of the site, and it's a useful tool from Google to look at. But again, we need to have admin access. So typically we'll have a look over here, and if they don't have Google Search Console set up, we would set this to fail. And then when you set that to fail, this turns red. In this case, let's pretend we knew that they had a Search Console set up. You set this to pass. A quick note on this, some of these don't require a fail or a pass. For example, checking the content management system, they can't fail or pass that. So this will set this to NA. If there's a scenario where something can't be found, I would set it to not found, but mostly it'll be either NA, pass, or fail. Okay. The next step is to check if the website has a robots.txt file. The way we do that is we take in any website and we go /robots.txt, and we'll see if they have a file. So for example, SeanDexter.ai, if we go /robots.txt, I have a robots.txt file. Same for Cutter and Squid. If we go over here and we go robots.txt, this will bring up the robots.txt file. Some websites don't have a robots.txt. Very rare, but it's possible. But we'll then take this, we'll copy it, and we'll paste it in over here. Make sure that when you are pasting it in, you go Control Shift V, so that anytime you paste anything in, it doesn't bring in the formatting from wherever it is. So it continues to look in the same formatting as this. Now, in terms of what the robots.txt is, you may have researched this already, but the robots.txt essentially is an instruction to Google on what pages should be crawled and what pages shouldn't be crawled. So, for example, Cutter and Squidge, their robots.txt file, because they're on Shopify, this actually isn't something that can be edited by them. On WordPress, we do have the opportunity to edit our robots.txt file, but Shopify is telling Google not to crawl the carts page, not to crawl the accounts page, not to crawl the orders page or the admin page. This is what the robots.txt file does. It gives search engines the opportunity to look at all of the pages that they don't want to be crawled, and they won't crawl it. The reasons for this could be because these pages aren't useful for Google. For example, the cart, the admin, the orders page, the checkout page. These aren't pages that they want that is important to show up in the organic search results. A lot of these pages are just very thin and don't have a lot of information on them. So we can see that's why they said disallow, checkout, disallow orders, and a lot of other things. We see over here disallow blogs. This doesn't mean that they've disallowed their blog page. If you look at some articles on robots.txt, it goes into a lot of detail, but they've essentially added a wildcard over here, which means only a particular type of blog is not going to be followed. Pretty complex area, but the thing we have to know for here is we just need to check that they do have the robots.txt file, and if they do, we put that in over here. Next, we need to check, do they have a sitemap? Extremely important because the sitemap is a page which is the opposite of the robots.txt. The sitemap is a page that tells Google what are all of the important pages that we want you to crawl and what are all of the important pages that we value as a website. So we need to find it. Not all websites have a sitemap. So the way we can find it is a few different ways. The first way is to actually check inside the robots.txt file. So if we go over here and we go Control F and we type in sitemap, easy enough, we found it right over here. This doesn't always exist inside a robots.txt file. For example, on mine, we do have a sitemap. I didn't even realize that. So sometimes the sitemap isn't included in the robots.txt, but it should. So this helps us. We can immediately find where is the sitemap, and we can then copy this URL and paste it in over here. If the sitemap isn't in the robots.txt file, there is a tool that we can use, which looks in a few other places to find the sitemap. So let's take schwandex.ai, copy it, and paste it in over here, and the checkup. And we can ignore everything else. The only thing we're looking for is the sitemap. So we found the sitemap, and obviously that's very, very, very straightforward. The other thing that we can do is try a few different. If this tool isn't able to find it, we can try a few different URLs. Some of them include. We can try sitemap underscore index.xml. This is one that we can try. This doesn't, obviously it's the wrong one for Cutter and Squid, but if we couldn't find it, this would be a good one to try. We can also try sitemap hyphen index. That's another one that can be tried. But again, of course, in this case, we've already found the sitemap. But the sitemap should always be a .xml file. It's very particular for the sitemap to be like this. Again, both of these were listed as a pass because we're able to find the necessary files. Check if the sitemap is in the robots.txt. In this case, it is, so we've changed this to a pass. Check if the XML sitemap has been submitted to Google Search Console. This is very important. Of course, this isn't something that we can do currently, but when you have admin access to Google Search Console, you can check if the sitemap has actually been given to Google. And if it hasn't, that's something that should be done. So if it hasn't, again, you would just put fail over there, but let's pretend it has been, so we'll go pass. Okay, the next section we're going to look at is a very important section, probably one of the most important sections, and this is all about the common URL issues that we see on sites. I'm going to walk you through each one. I'm going to walk you through how we check them. This is, again, extremely important, and we need to make sure this is done correctly because I've seen a lot of sites that have issues, and it can create a lot of confusion for the search engines. The first thing we want to check is the www version of the site against the non-www version. What we should see is that only one version is being used and the other version is redirected to the version that we want. So for example, if we go to Cutter and Squidge and if we click over here, double click, we can see their site is https:// no, they haven't included a www. It's just cutterandsquidge.com. That means if we add a www, what should happen is that we're automatically redirected back to the version we saw a second ago. So let's check. Let's click enter. And exactly, that's what we needed to happen. Now, if we added a www and clicked enter, and that page actually loaded with the www, that's a big problem because Google will look at that as two different URLs completely. It's almost as if it's a different page in the eyes of Google. This is a huge problem. So we always need to make sure that whichever is the main version, in this case it doesn't have the www, when we add it, that it redirects to this version. Let's look at Lola's Cupcakes, for example. They do have the www, so we would test it without it. So we would go over here and click enter, and in this case, it doesn't load, but let me show you. So the page itself, it has redirected, but it's redirected us to a non-secure. If you ever encounter this problem, click advanced and proceed to lolascupcakes.co.uk. Let's see what happens. Let's click over here, and of course we get taken back to the www version. I'll tell you why that happened in a moment, but we'd want to do that check. Once we've done that check, if it has passed, then we'll write it as a pass. If both versions loaded, this would of course be a fail. So this is a pass. The next extremely important thing is HTTP versus HTTPS. All websites should be on HTTPS, but we just want to double check if that's the case. So we go to Cutter and Squidge and let's get rid of the S, and what should happen is we get redirected to the HTTPS version. So let's try that. Let's click on the URL and we've been redirected here. So we would put this as a pass, which it is. Let's try also Lola's Cupcakes, just as an example. And we're redirected to the HTTPS version. So that's exactly what should happen. If the website isn't actually on HTTPS, if it's only on HTTP, again, it's quite rare, but some websites, the web owners don't know what they're doing. They still have HTTP. This would automatically we'd list this as a fail. So because if it's on HTTP, it definitely isn't redirecting to HTTPS. So that's what needs to be checked. So that's a pass. The next thing we need to do is using a tool, and it involves looking, well, both of these are done at the same time. So we go to httpstatus.io, and we want to look at exactly how are the URLs redirecting to the final version. So what we will do is we'll take the URL and copy and paste it in over here. Now, extremely important point is we're going to delete the HTTPS. We're going to delete this at the end, and we're going to have one version of the URL like this and one version with www cutterandsquidge.com. And the reason we're doing this is we want to look at the root URL without any www and without any HTTPS. And then we also want to look at the root URL without any HTTPS or HTTP and just a www. I'll explain why, and we're going to see what happens. So if we go check status, what we see is an ideal situation. This is exactly what we want to see, is that both of these will, this is a 301 redirect, so this is the type of redirect, it's the good redirect, this is what we want. It redirects once to a 200 version. 200 means it's a status code, which means that the final URL is working well. So we can see over here, the base URL had one redirect, and it redirected properly to the final URL, which is https cutterandsquidge.com, and then http www also has one single redirect, which takes us, if we scroll down, okay, this is a lot of gobbledygook, but basically it takes us to the final URL in one redirect, and this is good. So what we would then go ahead and do is, I'll show you a situation where this doesn't work, is we're going to download this as a CSV. We're then going to open this. Let me bring this over here. We're going to open both of these up. And we're going to take all of this, or we can just highlight this over here. I'm going to go copy. Then let me just go back a step. Then we're going to come back to the sheet and we're going to go to domain redirect path and we're going to paste it in over here and we're going to add a little line in. So when you just paste it in, it comes out like this. So we just want to add another line in and we want to make this bold. So that's exactly how it looks at the top. And this shows us immediately that we can see whichever URL we put in, we have one redirect which takes us immediately as a 301 redirect from this to this. This is the final URL, and from this to this, the final URL. So it's just one hop. This is very good. This is exactly what we want. Now, let me show you a situation where it doesn't work. Lola's Cupcakes. We're going to try Lola's Cupcakes, and remember what I said. We want to try one version without the www. And we're going to want to try one version with the www. Now, an important thing to note is that we always want to look at the base URL. And as we can see in this case, Lola's Cupcakes loads with this strange thing on the end of it. If you go to the site, it loads with default.aspx at the end. We're going to remove this. If you ever see a site with this at the end, we want to remove it, we want to remove it, we want to look at the base URL. So again, lolascupcakes.co.uk without anything, and then the www version of it. So let's check status, and we're going to see something interesting. So this is a problem. Unlike the other one, here we're seeing free redirect. We're seeing a 301 to a 301 to a 302 to a 200. And then with this one, we're seeing a 301 to a 302 to a 200. So instead of clicking the arrow, let's just download it as a CSV and have a look at how this looks. Let's open it up. Let's do this. Let's add a line in between. And again, if we were doing it for Lola's, we would copy and paste this into Google Sheets. But what we can see is over here is the base Lola's Cupcakes URL without anything. First 301s to the www version, then at 301s to the HTTPS version, then at 302s to HTTPS www with the default.aspx at the end. So this is the path that it goes down, and this is bad. What we would have wanted to see is that this URL automatically redirects to either this one or this one. And we can see a similar thing here when we add the HTTP. When we added the www at the beginning, this redirected to this, which then redirected to this. This is a difficult thing to solve. there's a lot into it, but all we need to know is that we need to take this information and paste it in. So in this case, if we were looking at this would actually fail. So we would have listed this as a fail, and we would have said the root domain redirect for Lola's actually had 3 redirects, so we would have put 3 redirects, and the www.one, if we remember, had 2 redirects. So it has 2 redirects, but again, so this would be a fail as well. In this case, we're looking at Cutter and Squid, so both of those actually passed. So that passed, and this we'll just add over here 1 redirect, and copy and paste over here. So 1 redirect. The next extremely important thing we need to look at is called index.php or index.html. In short, every single website, before it loads Cutter and Squidge, there is actually an index.php version of this page or an index.html version of this page. And to make it simple, for this page to load, it gets pulled in from an index.php file. We're going into like programming language now, but that's how it works. The majority of the time, the URL is like this, and we don't see the index.php. However, sometimes on if it's not on Shopify and it's not on WordPress, we'll end up seeing the index.php, and that will actually be indexed by Google. So the way to check this is we'll take the entire website, we'll copy it, we'll go to google.com, we'll paste this in over here, and what we need to do is we need to get rid of everything aside from the website, and then we go site cutterandsquidge.com. Let's get rid of this, and then go in URL index, and this is going to, well, let's do it now. We see it didn't match any documents. That's good. That's exactly what we wanted to see. Essentially, what we're telling Google to do is we're saying site, look at cutterandsquidge.com and have a look if it can find any URLs that include index inside the URL. So of course, in this case, we want to see if it's an index.php or index.html is being included. It didn't match any documents, and that's good. So we would go over here, and we'll list this as a pass. If it did find an index.php or an index.html, we would want to see whether or not it redirects to the normal version or whether or not it has a canonical tag. So let's pretend that when we typed this in, we actually saw a result over here, which was cutterandsquidge.com/index.php. And when we clicked on it, it took us to this page, index.php. As we can see, the page still loaded even with the index.php. That's fine. We just want to make sure that Google isn't finding this page. So if Google did find this page, we would then click on that in Google, and we would go to SEO Meta in one click, and we would check, does it have a canonical tag? And it does. So the URL that we're on now is index.php. The canonical tag is automatically set to the main website, which means we're telling Google, remember what a canonical is, it tells Google what page is the most important. It's telling Google, ignore this page, focus on the home page. So that would be fine, but again, we don't need to type it in. It's only important if Google is finding it. So we just need to do this, and if nothing comes up, then it's passed. So that's fine. Okay, the next extremely important thing we need to check is the slash versus non-slash. And I'll explain to you what this is. So if we go onto a website, and let's go to the real homepage, this doesn't apply to the homepage. This only applies to inner pages. For the homepage, whether or not it has a slash at the beginning or at the end, it doesn't matter at all for the homepage. This is only relevant for inner pages. And let me explain why. If we go to Biskies and go to all Biskies, what we see over here is /collections/Biskies. Now, if this page had a slash at the end of it, Google will actually look at that as a completely new page. So similar to what we were talking about with the previous issue, these are two different URLs entirely, which means that it's extremely important that only one version loads. We either want it to have a slash at the end or to not have a slash at the end. So there's a few checks we need to make over here. The first check is we want to see what is the preferred version that's loading. So what I'd suggest you do is go onto the site and click around. Have a look at the category page, have a look at some product pages, have a look at the blog, have a look at maybe the contact page, and let's just check that all of the pages are loading, in this case, without a forward slash. Now, if they all loaded with a forward slash, that's fine. If they all load with a forward slash, or if they all load without a forward slash, that's good. It's only a problem if some pages are loading with a forward slash and if others are loading without the forward slash. That's when we have a problem, because that means probably every page has another version of it without the forward slash. So let's just click around and check. So if we go to Biscuits, it doesn't have a forward slash. Let's click on a product, it doesn't have a forward slash. Let's maybe scroll down and have a look at the blogs. It doesn't have a forward slash, and let's click on one of the blogs, and it doesn't have a forward slash. So what we'll go over here and do is, again, this isn't something that can pass or fail. We're just checking this. So we'd say non forward slash preferred. Now, just to show you a few other examples with Lola's Cupcakes, they have this weird .htm at the end. So if we go to a few pages, if we go to groceries, we say it has .htm. Basically, this would be non-forward slash. So if we were auditing Lola's, we'd click over here, the same thing, non-forward slash preferred. If we look at my site, for example, all of the pages load with a forward slash. So the about loads with a forward slash, the services loads with a forward slash. There we go, with a forward slash. If we go to contact, it loads with a forward slash. So on my one, if you were auditing my site, you would click forward slash preferred. So depending on the site, you do what's necessary. Now, the next important thing we need to have a look at is what happens when we add or remove a forward slash from the URL. So we basically want, if we add a forward slash or remove a forward slash from the URL, we want that URL to either redirect to the original version, or it should have a canonical tag set to the original version, and this will eliminate a lot of errors. So let's have a look at how this would look in real life. Just as we did before, I would go to maybe one or two pages now. So we've got a product page over here, and let's go to the brownies page. And let's add a forward slash at the end and click enter, and let's see what happens. Now, as I mentioned before, we need to check one or two things. Either this page should automatically redirect back to the version without the forward slash. That didn't happen. In this case, this version actually loaded with a forward slash, and we can see it's the same page, but it actually loaded. So if Google found this page, Google would think that this is an entirely different page to the previous one. The other option we have is to check if there's a canonical tag in place, which is not as good, but it's still okay. So we click over here and we check. This URL is with the forward slash, and a canonical tag is set to the version without the forward slash, which was the original version, and that's correct. So we're telling Google that the important version of this page is the page without the forward slash, so ignore this version. The canonical is pointing to this version over here, and that's good. Let's also check one of the product pages. So this is brownies. Let's add a forward slash. The page loads, so let's check if it has a canonical, and it does. The canonical is set to the version without the forward slash. So that's very good. So we would go over here and we type in pass, it's a canonical. Now let me show you a situation where it doesn't pass. It's actually Lola's Cupcakes. So if we go to any of the pages on Lola's Cupcakes, what we actually end up seeing is that, again, there is no forward slash. But if we choose to add one, if we add this over here and we click enter, what happens is the page loads, which is okay, but we should at least see a canonical version pointing back to the original. If we go over here, we see that no canonical is defined, and this is a big problem. I can explain why. It's essentially Lola's Cupcakes is custom built, so a lot of things that we can do with a plugin on Shopify and WordPress is difficult to do at Lola's. But this is a major problem that the developers need to fix. So what we would actually go over here and do is for Lola's Cupcakes, this would be a fail, and then you wouldn't need to include anything over there. If you just add fail, then we know that there's no canonical and there's no redirect in place, which is very bad. I'll show you an example with my site. Um, we're on WordPress, so this happens automatically on WordPress. If in this case it has the forward slash, so if we remove the forward slash, it will automatically redirect back to the previous version. So if we click enter, when it loads, there we go. It automatically redirected us back to the forward slash version, which is the best way for it to happen, which means it's impossible for Google to essentially find the version without the forward slash, because we're immediately redirecting people back to the forward slash version. So this would also be a pass. The next thing we're going to be looking at is checking for trailing slash errors on a site, and to do this we're going to start using Screaming Frog. So I'm going to walk you through some of the initial recommended settings to get some of the initial readings that we need, which will help us find information about this and a few other things below as well. So the first thing you're going to need to do is go onto Screaming Frog's website and download Screaming Frog so that it's on your computer. I'm also going to give you access to my license key. So then you just go up to license, you click enter a license, and you enter in the license that I give you, and that will allow you to do some advanced things on Screaming Frog, and it will also allow you to crawl more than 500 URLs. The next thing you need to do is go to configuration. There's a few settings we need to add in. So you go to configuration, you go to Spider, and we want to untick external links. This probably will be ticked by default. So untick this and untick this, so it looks just like it does over here. The next thing you want to do is scroll down and click this over here. So click crawl linked XML sitemap. I think by default this is unticked, so you want to tick this. Yeah, normally by default it's like this. So you want to tick this, and then this should automatically be ticked afterwards. So auto discover XML sitemaps by robots.txt. Another thing we can do as well is if we have additional sitemaps. For example, if the sitemap isn't included in the robots.txt that we saw in the previous step, then we should click this and we should enter the URL of the sitemap over here. But in this case, we don't need to because the sitemap is in the robots.txt, as we saw in the previous step. Then you click OK, and then the last thing you need to do is go to configuration, content, duplicates, and then by default this isn't ticked, so by default it looks like this, so we want to tick it. Enable near duplicates and click OK. The next thing you want to do is take the website we want to crawl, in this case it's Cutter and Squidge. We copy and paste it over here and we click start, and when we click start the crawl begins. It may take 20 or 30 minutes to complete the entire crawl, but once the entire crawl is complete, you'll see there's something turning over here showing you how many URLs are remaining. Once the crawl is complete, we now have all the information that we could possibly need on Cutter and Squidge, every piece of information necessary. Now, this isn't going to be a tutorial on how to use Screaming Frog. I'm just going to show you my specific use cases for this tutorial. But there's plenty of tutorials online. I've given you links to them before. So make sure you go through those tutorials and familiarize yourself with some of the more advanced things we can do over here. Now, one last important thing is once the crawl is done, and only when the crawl is done, you'll see it will look like this. There'll be no wheels turning over here, which is how it normally will be. You want to click on crawl analysis and click start, and what that's going to do is it's then going to read the sitemap, compare the pages on the sitemap to the pages that it was able to crawl on the site. So very important thing, once you click start, that'll take about 20 seconds to do what it needs to do, and everything will be ready, and this is what we'll have as the final version. I also recommend you save this. So once you've done a crawl, you can actually save this as a file on your computer, which you can then just double click and it will open this up again. So if you ever need to go back in and look at Cutter and Squid, you don't have to recrawl the entire site. So the way you do that is just you go file save or file save as, and you just save it as a file on your computer. So it's extremely useful because then we can just open it up. So for example, at the moment I can open up the Gruto crawl that I did previously, and it's just saved as it is. So now we're back in Kotlin and Squidge. It's extremely useful to have them saved. Now, remember, the first thing that we wanted to look at over here was, in fact, the check for trailing slash errors. So I'm going to show you exactly what we need to do in order to achieve this. But the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out what is the preferred version. So we know with Cutter and Squidge, it's the non-forward slash URL is the preferred version. So what we want to do on Screaming Frog is check whether Screaming Frog was able to find any versions that do have the forward slash. And this is extremely important because the only way Screaming Frog can find a version that contains a forward slash is either A, if it's included in the sitemap, which it shouldn't be, because again, the non-forward slash version is the preferred version, or if somewhere within the site they've internally linked to a version of the URL that does have a forward slash. It's extremely important. As you can see in the section beneath, we have trailing slash error in links, and this is going to, we'll talk about this in a moment, but this will show us every page that is linking to a version of the URL with a forward slash. So big topic over here. I'm going to show you exactly what we need to do. So as we can see, as we scroll down, we've got all of the addresses here, and most of them don't have a forward slash. That's exactly what we expect. And remember, if you add a forward slash into URL, it's always a canonical. So it's a canonical that links back to the non-forward slash version. So we call that a canonicalized URL. If a URL has a canonical tag pointing somewhere else, it means it's being canonicalized. So we can actually very quickly enter in a little piece of code. I'll give you this piece of code. But you basically, it's a square bracket, backslash, forward slash, square bracket, and then dollar sign. And this will show us any URLs over here which contain a forward slash at the end. So let's have a look. Let's click enter. And it shows us there's actually 4 URLs that do contain a forward slash. Now, I want to be very clear. We're only interested in inner pages. If the home page contains a forward slash, like it does over here, like this and like this, that doesn't matter. Remember what I said before, it's only important for us to have a look at if there's any inner pages that are being linked to with a forward slash. Now this is a subdomain, we're also not interested in a subdomain, not for the time being anyway. Now what is interesting to me, again, nothing here is set in stone. We've got a lot of information, so the information I'm taking you through guidelines, but it's up to you to also learn and adapt to these guidelines. So what we're seeing here is we've got a HTTP www version of Cutter and Squid. Now we know this isn't the correct URL, and we also know from testing, as we've done previously in the task, that this will automatically redirect to the correct version, which is this version here. The interesting thing is that somewhere on the site where they're linking to this page. So it's not a major thing, it's just it's something we may want to be aware of. So if we click on it, and then we go to the bottom area over here and click on in links, which is automatically selected for us, we can see what pages are linking to this URL, because in our ideal world we wouldn't actually link to this URL, and what we can see is so they have a terms and conditions page which is actually linking to this URL over here, and as we know, that URL automatically redirects. We can see what is the text that's used. So on this page, the text that's used is www.cutterandsquidge.com, and that links to this URL that we basically don't want. Now, this isn't a big problem. It's a terms and conditions page. It's not a big issue. However, it would be an issue if we saw like 30 or 40 different pages that were all linking to this URL that is basically a 301 URL. That would be an issue. So that's some of the stuff that we can see with the inlinks. Now I've gone on to a completely different topic, but anyway, essentially what we want to look at is, are there any pages that have a forward slash, and there aren't. So what we would do is we would go back to the Google Sheet and we would write it as a pass. Now I'm going to show you a different example. If we take that same piece of code and we go to Gruto, we go to internal. Now Gruto, by default, their URLs aren't supposed, just like Cutter and Squidge, they're not supposed to have any forward slash at the end. And just like Cutter and Squidge, if you add a forward slash at the end, that URL will have a canonical tag set to the non-forward slash version, which is good. However, if we add in that same piece of code in Gruto, what we see is there's a lot of pages which have suddenly come up, and a lot of these pages have a forward slash. Again, we're not interested in the home page, we're just interested in all of these other pages. So we're linking to a lot of pages that have a forward slash at the end, and we can actually see, again, if we click on any page and then we go to the inlinks, we can see that to get to this page, they're linking from this sirloin steak page to this page with a forward slash at the end with the anchor text slow cooking. And what we can actually see is they're linking from both the non-forward slash and the forward slash version of the sirloin steak page. So they've got a big problem with duplicate URLs. This shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't see anything with a forward slash at the end of it if that's the non-preferred URL, just like we saw with Cutter and Squidge. So the first thing we want to do is take this entire long list, there's quite a lot of them, take this entire list and export all of it. So what we would quite simply do, we've got this little piece of code there already, all we do is go and click export. Oh, that stopped. Let me just click that again. Yeah, save it to whatever folder you need to save it to, and then you just click save, and it will save as a CSV file. So I've already got one saved, but let's just overwrite it. What we then want to do is put this in this file, in this tab over here called trailing/errors. And there's a few pre-made tabs already. So I'll show you how it looks. When you export it, it ends up looking like this. It's a little bit messy, so we can get rid of all of the different columns that we don't need. So these are the final columns that we need, and we're going to take this and copy it into Google Sheets. So the address, again, this is the address of the page that has the error. The content type, text HTML, that's good, that's exactly what we want. Sometimes there's other types of pages, we're only looking for text HTML pages. The status code, of course, tells us 200 means it's a page that exists, and it's a live page you can go to. A 301 means there's a 301 redirect, so you can't actually go to this page, it will redirect you to another page. So there's good information to have here. The status, sometimes this is filled, it isn't filled right now. Indexability tells us if the page is indexable or not. Indexability status, we can see if the page is being canonicalized, which we expect it to be. It has a forward slash at the end, which means it should be canonicalized. There's just, for whatever reason, they're linking to this page internally and they shouldn't be doing that. So we'll find that out in a moment. The inlinks tab tells us how many times they're actually linking internally to this page. So the rump steak page is being linked to twice. However, this large meatbox page is being linked to 60 times internally. Redirect URL tells us if there is a 301 redirect, which there is on this page, where does this page redirect to? It takes us over here. And then the redirect type, there's several different types of redirect. There is the code of the redirect, which is a 301 redirect or a 302 redirect. I saw one somewhere over here. But there's also other types of redirect which are bad, like HTTP redirect, JavaScript redirect and meta refresh redirect. These are both very bad. So this is just good information for us to have. So what I would do is take all of this and copy it all, and then go over here and paste it, and we should see that all matches up. Now I pasted it not at the top, I pasted it one below, because I've actually renamed this so that it's very clear as to what these columns all are. So instead of address, I've called this trailing slash pages, so we know these are all the pages of a trailing slash. And I think I've renamed a few other things, but we can go ahead and delete this row, delete row, so that we keep the initial row that we had, and then we can click at the top and double click here to open them all up fully. So now we've got this all over here. Now the next step we need to do is quickly scan through and check if the home page is there. We do have the home page here, and again we said we don't care if the home page has a trailing slash, so that can be deleted. And then we want to see what are all of the different pages which are linking to these pages over here. Extremely important for us to have a look at. So I'll show you how to do that now. Okay, so We're back inside Screaming Frog, and as we saw before, if we click on any of these and we go down here and look at the inlinks, we can see what pages are linking to it. So we're linking from sirloin steak to this page over here with the anchor text frying. Now what we can also do is click anywhere and then go Control A, and it will highlight everything over here, and what it will then do is show us the inlinks for every single page all at once, so we can export this. Now the problem with this is that because there's so many times where we're linking to a version of the page with a trailing slash, in the inlinks, it's actually showing us pages with a trailing slash linking to other pages with a trailing slash. Now that's not something we want to fix. We're not going to go onto this page with a trailing slash and not link to this page. Like initially, this page shouldn't even be found whatsoever, because this is the from page. This section over here is the page just linking to the pages with the trailing slash. So we now need to put a different piece of code over here to filter out and only find the URLs that don't have a trailing slash, such as this one, which are linking to the ones with a trailing slash, such as this one. So I'll show you that piece of code and I'll send it to you. But it is this. Let me just copy it in and click enter. And once we put this piece of code over here, now we're only seeing pages without a trailing slash, which is the preferred version, that are linking to pages with a trailing slash, the non-preferred version. So lots of information here. What we would then do is export this as well. Inlinks.csv, overwrite. I've already got a file called that, so we'll press OK, and then we'll open that up. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it's open. Let's click on this over here. Now the first thing I would do is, anytime you open everything up fully to have a look, sometimes you'll see there's a lot of white space. It doesn't happen a lot, but it's because there's one URL somewhere which is wider than the rest. I just take this and pull it, to a general area where we can see most of them. And what we can see over here is this is the to page. So this is the page with the problem, and these are the pages that are linking to the page with the problem. So lots of good information here. So we can see the topside beef page is linking to how to cook topside beef. It's linking to this page with masterclass on cooking topside beef steak. So if we find this piece of text inside this article, we can just link to the preferred version if we want to. Lots of other information here, so I'm going to tidy it up and show you what it looks like. So the final columns are this. Type, this just tells us, it's telling us it's a hyperlink, which is good, which means that this page is linking to this page. The type could also say HTTP redirect, which would mean that this page, a page without a forward slash, is redirecting to a page with a forward slash. So this is why this column is important, so we can just make sure that all of these are hyperlinks. Here we go. Here's an example of a HTTP redirect. Here's a better example. So we can see that this contact page is actually redirecting to the version of the contact page with a forward slash. So it's not linking to it with a piece of text, it's redirecting to it. That's an issue. I don't know why that redirect is in place, but again, now we've got all this information, we can do a lot with it. And then the anchor text is, we know what that is. The link position tells us whether or not the link is in the content or if it's in the header or footer. So let me scroll down. Here we go. So we can see that this page over here is linking to the forward slash version of the UK version of the site inside the footer. So interesting piece of information for us to look at. So what we're going to do, just like before, we're going to take all of this, we're going to copy it. We're going to go to the tab called trailing slash inlinks, and I've already renamed things slightly differently here. So remember, we click underneath and we'll click paste. And we can see there's a new column which hasn't been filled called new target page. We'll fill this in afterwards. So now we can make sure that these columns match up, and we want to just delete the one from Screaming Frog because I've renamed it in a better way above. So let's delete row, and let's open this up fully, and then let's just drag this back over here so we can see everything. And let's drag this as well over here. What we can see is the type, the source page, which is the source, the trailing slash page, which is the page that has a trailing slash, the anchor text, the link position, and if we wanted to suggest a new page, we could do so. So realistically, let me paste this over here. The new page should be this without the trailing slash. So this page should be linking to this one over here without the trailing slash, not the one with the trailing slash. And we could go ahead and do that for all of them, but that's not always the best idea, as a matter of fact, because we may want to sit down and have a look and think, all right, since we're going to be restructuring the internal linking, maybe we don't actually want to link to this large meatbox page at all. Maybe we can link to a different page entirely. So different things we can consider over here.